Alright guys, Brian here, and I'm back doing the handles on this Woodlore knife. And the handles are one of the things that can really make or break the knife, because this is where a lot of stuff starts coming together, and if you didn't do it right, you're going to have problems. Now, these are the scales that I cut apart last night. If you remember, I leveled them up on the sander, and then I did the liners up. And then the other thing I did before I started making the video was I made the sides even so that I can clamp up to them without squeezing the liner. But getting that level is a key thing, and keeping the knife stock level is not having any dips in it and stuff or anything is another key, because if everything's nice and square and level before you go to glue up, then you have no issues. If things aren't right, then you're going to be fighting gaps and everything else like that, and I'd rather not even mess with. I know a lot of people use different glues and fillers and all that stuff, and I'd rather just get it right and not even worry about that. None of this stuff in the handling is difficult, but there's a lot of little tips and tricks that you kind of pick up and figure out. So I'm going to show you some of those. Now, as you can see, I've got my knife. I've got blue painter's tape. I've got it taped to the scale, and it's sitting level in my vise right now. And you notice I'm only doing one at a time. Anytime I do wood, I only do one at a time, just because I can't really guarantee how parallel the sides are, and I don't want it being non-square sitting to the plane that the drill's going up and down. If I'm using micarta or G10, I'll put both scales together, put the knife on top, but I'll put opposite sides of the scales together. It's kind of hard to explain. I'll show you what I mean here when I'm all done. Let me see if I covered everything. The other thing is I've taken a lot of time figuring out which drill bit sizes I need for the different size holes I'm drilling, because for the tubes and the pins and all that, if you drill them too big, you leave too much of a hole, and then you can see like an epoxy ring around them, and it's just sloppy to put together. I put mine together real tight, and so there's some, and with everything being that tight, being careful about the deck being square to the drill press and everything being level is all real key. If it's sloppy, you can get away with that. If you want to get it tight, you really can't. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to drill the lanyard tube out. When I mentioned tricks, one of them too is, especially with the smaller drill bits, this one's a bigger one, so it's not a big deal. But if you go to get it into the hole you're drilling, and it's not quite centered, and you see that bend just a little bit, stop right there and center up your piece and get it, because if that drill bit's bending through there, you're not going to get the squarest hole. So I just drilled that hole, and I've got the tube that's going to go in there, and I'm going to fit that right now, because what that's going to do is hold it in place when I drill the other two pins. So the tube and the pins are different sizes, so I got to swap out my drill bit. And so this one is actually a little bit different than what I usually do. This one's going to be built with loveless bolts. I usually just pin it, in which case I just drill my hole through and use the pins later. But since this one's doing loveless bolts, I'm going to drill a smaller hole, and that hole is going to be the size of this right here on the bottom of my reamer. And then when I get done, I'll flip the scales over, and this will fit inside the holes I drilled, and then I'll use the bigger one that'll size it to the 1/4 inch for the nuts on the loveless bolt. So I'm going to drill it with the smaller one that is the same size as the end of that reamer. Then to hold it for the last one, I'm just going to use the reamer itself. Now at this point I take the tape off, but I leave the pins in. This is why I mentioned I'm not going to mess with cleaning up the knife before I get the handles done. I mentioned that yesterday. And then with the pins in and the tape off, I'm going to take my scratch awl and I'm going to scribe the shape of the knife onto the block. So now I got the knife outline, I don't know if you can see that or not, knife outline scribed into that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the other side just like this, I'm not going to show it, and then I'm going to take them over the bandsaw and cut the shape out. Alright, I lied, the next thing I'm going to do is not cut them out like I said. What I'm going to do is use the counterbore bit here to take the smaller hole to 1/4 inch to accept the loveless bolt. What I've done is I've already set my drill press up with a stop in place to leave me the thickness left that I want in place. So I'm all set to do that. But to go back to what I was talking about before is I drilled one scale and one knife at a time. If this was my Carter G10, what I would do is I'd take this one on the surface that the knife should sit on, and I would put it down that way, and then I'd take the other scale and put it this way, the opposite way, and then tape it all down in one bunch. And the reason I do that is I keep this surface square to the drill plane and all that, but sometimes you can never be certain if like a drill might deflect or whatever, and if there's any little angle bit that's off one way or the other, by doing that, it ensures when you flip it around that it's consistent. When you go to make it a match set, it's consistent all the way through. So that's the reason for doing that. Alright, so I'm going to drill these out and then I'll take you over to the drill press. Alright guys, now with the bandsaw, all I'm going to do is simply cut the shape out as close to that line as I can on the bandsaw.